Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. Today, we are diving on into some new research that sheds a little light on the dynamic between two longevity boosters and some common habits that are near and dear to my heart, because I do them each and every day. We are talking about the combo of fasting and exercise, and specifically how exercise may actually make fasting easier in a not so obvious way, because you never truly realize how much of your day is consumed by food until you stop eating for a period of time, that is, which can be perfectly represented by this clip from Step Brothers. Roll it.
Can we turn our beds into bunk beds? All right, we've already figured out how to do this. The beds match up perfectly.
And here's the thing, it'll give us so much extra space in our room to do activities.
Just pretend exercise is the bunk beds and fasting is all the activities that they can now do. Production team gave me that analogy. They want to know if you liked it. Yeah, no, they loved it, guys. Thanks. Anyway, we are going to be diving into some new research highlighting how starting your fast off with a little sweat may make the overall fast more tolerable. And the underlying mechanisms in which it does this has a little something to do with our ever-changing biochemistry. Specifically, the hormones, proteins, and peptides that influence our hunger and satiety. Now, what we will not be covering in this fasting and working extravaganza is the overall impact that exercise has on lean muscle tissue while fasting. And that's because we already did it right here. So let's first set the stage with what hunger and satiety actually are. Then we'll talk about some key biomarkers used to measure them, which are conveniently used in the research we will then review. And finally, we'll walk through some of my personal experience with the combo. Because,
well, I have a microphone and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say!
right on. What are the hunger and satiety signals? Modern research has shed light on the fact that the hunger and satiety signal are a tad bit more complicated than the stomach texting the brain, feed me or I'm full. And I don't know if it's just me, but stomach kind of puts off those you up at 2 a.m. vibes. But we digress. The satiety signal happens to be a series of peptides, proteins, and hormones that are released at different points in digestion to signal the energy regulating part of our brain, the hypothalamus, to stop the indulging. This is a complex system that has evolved over hundreds of thousands of years and kept us intelligent walking apes alive. And it's done a pretty good job. That is, until we started throwing it into a metabolic tailspin with our modern day food habits. But that's a whole nother topic for another day, and something we dive into quite a bit on the How to Eat playlist. All in all, as it pertains to satiety and energy balance, our food intake is largely regulated by this biochemical signaling. And the biochemical players include ghrelin, which is a well-identified hormone that signals the state of hunger to the brain, along with glucagon-like peptide 1, leptin, pancreatic polypeptide, and peptide YY, which have all been associated with sending the signal of satiety up into the brain. Now, you may be wondering, rightfully so, how does fasting and exercise impact this biochemistry? Well, first, as it pertains to exercise, it's been discovered that both acute and chronic exercise increase the circulating levels of several satiety hormones, driving the feeling of satisfaction and reducing food-seeking behavior. Pretty cool. And it may be something that you have noticed personally in your training. Now, with intermittent fasting, the data has been a little muddy, and that's for good reason, because not all fasting protocols are the same. In fact, they are very, very different, and there is a lot of nuance between them. We have some data suggesting that there is an increase in the hunger hormone ghrelin and a reduction in satiety hormones such as GLP-1 throughout shorter daily fasts, while research on longer 36+ hour fasts have displayed a steady and slow decrease in serum ghrelin levels as the days pass. The devil is truly in the fasting details and the faster's current health state. So depending on one's current state variables, the fasting protocol at play, and their overall goals, the biochemical changes around hunger and satiety that ensue during a fast can make it potentially more challenging to endure the fasting period. But what if, just hear me out, what if we added exercise to the fasting protocol? Would that potentially change anything? You know, that's an excellent question. If only we had some research. We do? Production team, you guys rock. Let's look at this new data. The research. This new data out of BYU and published in the International Journal of Exercise Science explored this very question, testing if exercise could influence human hunger and satiety hormones throughout an intermittent water-only 36-hour fast. To do this, they randomized 20 participants across two groups, a fasting-only group and a fasting and exercise group, where subjects in the exercise group completed an intense treadmill workout at the beginning of the fast, while the fasting-only group just fasted. The hunger and satiety hormones, ghrelin, GLP-1, leptin, pancreatic polypeptide, and peptide YY were assessed via blood samples every 12 hours, or 4 different times during the 36-hour fasting period. Researchers also had participants log subjective mood and hunger ratings every 2 hours in an effort to correlate whether these ratings were consistent with the objective hormonal changes, and to see if anyone was getting hangry and needed a Snickers. And I'll tell you, what straight up propaganda from the Snickers marketing team. They even got Betty White in on it.
You're playing like Betty White out there. That's not what your girlfriend said.
So what happened? Well, first, compared to the fasting-only group, the exercise-only group saw suppressed ghrelin secretion during the first 24 hours of the 36-hour intervention. They also saw an increase in key satiety hormones GLP-1 and C-peptide between the initial measurement and at 12 and 24 hours compared to the fasting-only group. But interestingly, subjective feelings of hunger and gut discomfort did not differ between groups. In the end, researchers concluded that starting a fast with exercise could very well make it easier to complete. And they also added a few more nuggets in their analysis, which I want to bring up. They highlighted some of their previous research, which found that initiating a period of fasting with exercise significantly accelerates the metabolic changes associated with fasting, noting that the state of ketosis, or where the body transitions into more of a fat-burning state, was achieved 3.5 hours faster when the fast was initiated with a little sweat. Damn. I think I know what the sequel to this video has to be now. Taking their previous work into consideration, the researchers here suggest that the metabolic changes associated with fasting can be achieved not only quicker with the addition of exercise, but also with less of a negative impact on hunger. Kind of makes me want to try it. Oh, I have? Oh, yeah, no, I have. For quite a while now, actually. Thanks for the reminder, production team. Here is my subjective experience on the matter. So with a good, solid 5-year foundation of daily intense exercise and a nice mixture of a variety of different fasting protocols, including 16-8, early 18-6, alternate day fasting, 1 meal a day, and prolonged water-only fast up to 180 hours, or 7 days, here's what I've subjectively noticed when it comes to hunger and satiety. And I say subjectively because the only hard objective data that I was collecting during these times was my glucose and ketone levels. First, daily exercise definitely helped suppress appetite for me. Sometimes it lasted longer, sometimes it was shorter, but it definitely helped. Now, it's important to note, during this time period, I exclusively worked out in the morning, a few hours before I would traditionally break my fast. Next, I clearly and consistently observed that the longer that I fasted, the more the hunger pains or signaling would subdue. For example, typically when I hit the 36-hour fasting mark, excess hunger urges would typically dissipate. And this has been very, very consistent over the last 5 or so years. Now, that being said, I do attribute this partially to my consistency with meal timing. In other words, eating at the same exact time each and every day. And when you do this, your body becomes pre-programmed to expect food at that specific time. And if you do this right, you also align this with your circadian rhythms, which is your internal body clock. So on the days or multiple days when I'm fasting, I notice that I always get hungry right as that typical feeding window opens. And when the feeding window passes, so does the hunger. And to give you a little example, I typically break my fast at 11 a.m. each and every day. So on the fasting days or fasting weeks, I will notice that I will get my biggest urge for hunger at 11 a.m. But when an hour or two pass by, the hunger goes with it. Now, I for one think that there's a number of different underlying mechanisms at play here, going much deeper than just straight up hormone levels. As I alluded to before, I would hypothesize that each individual circadian biology has a fair amount of influence. But hey, this is just me and my N of 1 experimentations. And quite frankly, my experience doesn't have good control data because I had my exercise habits long before I had my fasting habits. So I was always exercising. I could stop exercising, but no, we're not going to do that. So I only have subjective experience from fasting and exercising and not just fasting. That being said, working out has been something that I've consistently performed throughout all of my different fasting protocols, which we cover in depth in the 50 plus videos on the Fasting 101 playlist. And I've had a pretty positive experience throughout. Just remember, everybody's different. And on this journey of owning your health, you got to figure out who and where you are. My subjective experience certainly doesn't mean that you will have the same experience yourself. So although exercise seems to benefit a fasting protocol in a number of different ways, you always have to listen to your body and not overload it by introducing too much at once. Take it easy, ease into it, talk to your doctor, and implement your strategy with sustainability in mind. The goal is to improve and extend longevity, not deter from it. And part of owning your health is realizing that and executing against that very fact. Listen, it's simple math. The more investments you make today, the more activities you'll have tomorrow.
This is how we do it!
Production team, again, they thought it'd be a good closing. I'm not going to ask if they thought it was funny. Just check the comments. You better leave them a comment.